we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours. Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's Jared, and with us today we have Chandler. Jeff is going to hopefully pop in throughout this episode, so when he gets in, we can, I guess, try to acknowledge him. But anyways, we were having a little bit of fun conversation before we turned on. But why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? What you do, what makes you move. You know.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm glad this is the After Hours podcast because it's Friday, and we are. I know you'll be listening to this all throughout the week, but I've already got the hat on backwards, and I'm thinking about the yard work I got to get to this weekend. That is my therapy away from the office during the week. So, Jared, man, I appreciate you having me on the show, and we'll see if we end up with a co-host here today.
Yeah,
I've heard
right.
rumors of this guy, but we'll see. I'm excited to meet him. He sounds great, or
He's
maybe he's just mythical. We'll see.
the myth, the man, the legend. Don't tell him that though. It'll go straight to his head.
That's
We don't
we'll
need
edit
that.
that out in post for sure. Well, man, thanks for having me on. My name's Chandler Lyles. I am a serial entrepreneur for better or worse at this point in my life. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 12, 13 years at this point. Started my career in the Air Force. We were talking about that. We had that similarity. You were in the real military though, the
Yeah.
Army. I was just a desk jockey in the Air Force. But I was a contracting specialist. So basically, what I did then was I was the liaison between the government and small businesses that wanted to do business with the government. And I was 19 when I joined. And I was telling you just a minute ago, it was, oh, there we go. The legend has arrived. Jeff, how you doing, man?
How you doing, Chandler? Sorry, I'm late,
Your
everybody.
ears must have been burning. We were just talking all your praises just a second ago.
Oh, that's
Yeah, we'll
surprising
go with
from-
that.
from
We'll
Jared.
go with that.
But yeah, my career started, like I said, in the Air Force, and I was a contract specialist, so really helping small business owners do business with the government. And that was my intro into the corporate world. I had no entrepreneurs in my family growing up. I didn't really know you could own a business. I had no idea that was an option. And by the time I was 23, I had spent $50 million, which was a lot of fun and a lot of interesting negotiations back and forth in the day. And it was a good experience. But then from that, I launched a barbecue restaurant and started out doing that as a tent on the side of the road and built that thing up to, I think we were like a 30-seat restaurant at the end, doing about $1 million a year in sales with a couple locations. And that took about 6 years. And ultimately, I crashed that business because I had a little bit of an ego problem and I was not very wise with my business resources and funding and all the things. And I'm happy to get into that story here in a minute as well. But then I got to take 2 years off from being an entrepreneur because you still got to pay the bills and buy groceries. And I got a family and a wife and all the things. So ended up going to work for a guy named Dave Ramsey. He's got a big radio show here in the States called Ramsey Solutions down in Franklin, Tennessee. And I worked on a brand there called the Entre Leadership brand, which is a business coaching brand. And I was on their marketing team for 2 years and met my two co-founders for my new business, Hy-Vee Marketing, while I was there at Ramsey. And they were both running paid ads on Dave's team. And we decided what would it look like to run our own agency. And we launched Hy-Beam in September of 2021. So we're a performance marketing agency now. And I've taken the background I have, a big heart for small business owners, because I realized this when I was a barbecue restaurant owner that a lot of people that are in the B2B service space just want to take your money. They don't really want to help you build your business. They're really just worried about their bottom lines. And so there's this huge hole in the market, especially in the marketing space, where anybody can watch a YouTube video and all of a sudden they're a marketing genius guru type. And there's this huge hole in the space for people with a heart for teaching, right? And that's where performance marketing really comes in. We're really like coaches, but we actually do the work. So we'll sit in a Zoom call with you or an actual one-on-one meeting with you and talk marketing strategy, but then we don't just give you a playbook, like we go do it for you. And, we're very active with tracking, and return on ad spend is a big metric for us. I think right now, the last time I checked, we're like a little over a 6x return on ad spend for all of our e-commerce clients, like as an average across the portfolio. So really proud of that number. And I'm most proud of the retention number that we've got at Hy-Beam now, which is if you're with us 90 days, the chances you're with us a year are really, really high. And to me, in a world that I interview a lot of other agency owners because I don't know what I don't know, and I'm trying to learn from everybody around me. And they all tell me that churn is a huge problem. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've not had a ton of churn with people that we like doing business with. There's been some people we let in and we're like, oh, you're a little too crazy for us, or we just can't figure out how to market it. But that's the exception at this point. I'll say that.
Do they say why the turnover's so bad in your space?
For the other agency owners,
Yeah.
I think marketing agencies have they're like any other small business, and this is what I've learned. And you end up with a lot of cash flow problems if you're not careful. And so you have this. I like to equate service businesses on a scale, and on one side you have the amount of business that you can actually do in the market, and then on the other side you have your capacity to fulfill all that business. And so the B2B service business is constantly about keeping that scale in balance. And what a lot of agencies will end up happening is they'll get a lot of business, and so they'll hire a lot of workers to balance that scale back out. And then they'll be over reliant on that client or one or two clients. Something happens, interest rates tighten up, funding goes away, and then all of a sudden that scale is really out of whack. Then they got to lay people off. And then it's like this constant cycle of growing too fast, retracting too fast. You can never really build solid systems in place to where you can be sticky enough for people. And I think that all stems from not doing enough vetting on the front end. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're interviewing with a marketing agency to take over your stuff, pay attention to what questions they're asking beyond the typical like pain funnel questions, right? Where they're going like, well, how does that work for you? And what would your life look like if you could change that?
Right.
And like all that stuff's great. And that's very good for building trust and like getting you understand the value, like 100%. But you have to take yourself away from like, how do I say this? You got to step back in that moment, be self-aware enough to step back and go, has this guy asked me anything about my business? Like revenue, profit, CAC, lifetime value? Like what are the technical strategic questions that he's asking to understand my business as a whole? And I think that's something else that makes us unique is because at the barbecue restaurant, I was responsible for the entire P&L. And so I didn't just have a marketing focus. And a lot of guys that end up owning marketing agencies are really just good at the marketing piece of it. And so I understand the pain points of, yeah, you can do marketing, but what happens if you have a killer marketing campaign and all of a sudden you've created supply chain issues?
Right.
And so you've got to have a marketing person on your team that understands the whole picture. It helps with ensuring success down the road for sure.
Yeah. Tell us about the barbecue business. That used to be my forte.
Oh, no way. Did you own a restaurant or did you just do the backyard thing?
I don't know if I'd ever own a restaurant in general.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever would again.
It's a rough,
I got a
rough business as a whole. So
it's funny. People always say that to me, and then and I agree, but I also think like every business is sort of a rough business,
Sure.
especially in the first 5 years. Like you've got a lot of things you're trying to figure out to get the product market fit and build your systems and build your teams and everything else. So the thing I didn't like about the restaurant business, I'll tell you that, and what actually I think makes it tough is the type of employee that you have to deal with, just because you're not you just don't have the bandwidth to pay so much. And so your talent is sort of limited. So it's really on you to be a better leader to like really build the team out. But if you can only pay somebody $8-9 an hour to wash dishes, like that is what it is. And so it's either a high school kid that has no experience or like somebody in their 40s that has a lot of life experience that's not so great.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough market from a people development standpoint. And I think that was the most challenging piece of it. But yeah, so the barbecue restaurant started, I was in the Air Force and I was barbecuing on the weekends as a hobby, like most dudes do. I think you have what's the joke? Like when you become an adult as a guy, like you have to either get really into World War II history or really into backyard barbecue.
Right. Exactly.
I was already in the Air Force. So I was like, I can't get into World War II history. I got to go to the barbecue route. But I was spending all this money on this hobby. And if you know barbecue, like, buying a brisket is $80. Like that's expensive. And that's not including the wood or the equipment or anything else. And right around the same time I got married, and my amazing, beautiful wife, who I'm still married to 12 years later. Oh man, I almost got in trouble there. She's awesome. But we joined our bank accounts, and then she started to see how much I was spending on this hobby. And she doesn't love barbecue like I did. She didn't want to eat it every weekend. And she definitely didn't want to eat leftovers for the whole week after that, which I could do, no problem.
Same.
But she was not in. Yeah. So she wasn't wired like that.
Right.
So we came to an agreement, essentially, early marriage agreement, where if you're married, you know what I'm talking about, like an agreement where it was like, well, I'm so smart, I'll just go to my office and sell barbecue, and if I break even, you can't give me a hard time anymore. And luckily enough, I went to the office and sort of like a drug dealer was walking around with samples of barbecue that I had made the previous weekend, and I sold enough to break even on my next smoke, and we were off to the races from there. And my contract ended with the Air Force. So I did a 4-year enlistment. It was 1 year later, my contract ended. So I kind of got to perfect the craft. Luckily, at the same time, my parents were kind of doing the same thing down in Texas. They were both, my dad was in the military, he was in the Air Force as well. And he was retiring the same time I was separating. And so we talked to each other and said, what would it look like for us to join forces and start our own family business together? Because that seems like a great idea. And we launched, and we moved back to Lexington, Kentucky, and we bought a tent, we bought a smoker, and we set up on the side of the road and we started slinging it. And then, you know, I didn't realize at the time, but owning a business is a job. Doing the thing is a job. And so what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people are really good at the thing. So that could be like an HVAC guy, a plumber, electrician. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you're a banker. Like, you could be really good at the thing, but then all of a sudden, when you go open your own business, you're no longer just the thing doer. That's like one of the jobs you hold, especially in the beginning if you're bootstrapping. Like, you're now wearing all the different hats, right? You are
Right.
the CEO, the chief everything officer. And so very quickly we realized, like, oh, I've got to be chief operations officer. I got to be chief executive officer. I got to be the chief marketing officer, and like, oh, chief technology officer. Like, I don't know how to set up IT for these, purchase systems and everything else that we have in the restaurants. And like, the general manager, the general contractor, as we built spaces out, like finance, like, oh man, it was an MBA in itself. I'll say that. Like, I learned a ton trying to, just because you have to read a
Right.
bunch of books. At least that was the route I went.
Right.
And that was sort of how we grew it. But we took the tent, and we finally figured out, like, okay, restaurant is a volume game. So we've got to get into a brick and mortar space. And so we had no money, and for 13 grand, we found a little gas station with a restaurant next to it. Where are you guys from again? I don't think I asked that. I see the Texas flag behind you, but
Yeah, I'm originally from Texas. I currently live in Michigan.
okay, cool. What about you, Jared? Where are you at?
I'm here in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, San Antonio. So Lackland was there. There's tons of barbecue places connected to gas stations. It's part of the
Oh
culture. Like,
yeah.
you guys know that.
Uh,
Like, in Kentucky, it was not. And so we were trying to, like, teach people that. But we were next to a gas station, next to a liquor store, next to an hourly,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure. And so we hit the location trifecta, and we weren't even smart enough to get a spot in Lexington, which is a great town, like a good population center, great demographics, all the things. We were on the outskirts of town, in between another city called Nicholasville, Kentucky, which was like a suburb of Lexington. And this 4-lane road, which you guys will understand in Texas, everybody does 80 and a
Mhm.
55, and there's one stop sign or stoplight that you would stop at to turn right to go to our restaurant, and nobody stopped, and they just boom, were flying down the road. And so very quickly, I had to learn how to market uh, that space, and because if I didn't, like, we were going to go out of business. And everybody, there was a car dealership across the street, Toyota dealership, and everybody would come in while we were building the place out, which blew me away. They would just walk in and be like, "What are y'all doing?" Which was wild to me. I was like, "There's a door there, and there's no sign
Kentucky
that says
for you.
open." That's a You just welcome in, I guess. And they'd come in and be like, "What are you guys up to?" And we're like, "Oh, we're gonna open a barbecue restaurant in the next couple weeks. Like, would love to have you." Da da da. Trying to put on our best Southern hospitality face. And they would all say the same thing: "I hope you make it. Restaurant business is tough, and this place has been a lot of different restaurants." And they would all tell me some version of that story. And all of a sudden, we looked at each other and we were like, "I don't know what we signed up for, but we may have just really messed up."
Yeah.
And we did. I mean, that was a terrible location. And what I learned was, in the restaurant business, and a lot of brick and mortar businesses, especially if you're dependent on foot traffic, you will either pay the fee in a higher rent to not have to market your business and let the area market your business for you, or you will pay the money in marketing to drive traffic to your business. And so that was what we ended up doing. And this was 2014, 2015. This was 2015. Yeah, mid 2015. And so, like, Facebook ads were still really cheap at the time. I didn't know anything, but I knew enough to be dangerous. And so I basically dropped a pin on my building, started taking pictures of our food with an iPhone 5 or whatever it was at the time. And then I just hammered like a 3-mile radius around us for as much money as I could afford. And we started out with like $5 a day in ads, and then, slowly grew it up to about $3,000 a month in that location. And then that business went from our first year in the tent, we did like $68,000 in sales. And then we got into the brick and mortar store and we did like 280 in the first like 8 months, 9 months. And then the next year in the brick and mortar in that gas station, we did like 680. And then we had enough money and enough like experience to know like, oh, we need a better location. So we moved, we bought out something else I learned in the restaurant business was that restaurants are worthless. From a like you're buying, like all the equipment's worthless. Like unless the brand is super strong and already well run and all the things, like you can get all the equipment for a penny on the dollar. And that's essentially what we did is we bought another barbecue restaurant out that had a better location, just wasn't marketing well, and was in a good shopping center, but it was actually in Lexington. And we made that transition. And then that's how we ended up doing like 750 and then $1 million the year after that. So, a ton of things happened in there, a ton of things to unpack. So I'm an open book. We essentially, that story ended. I'll tell you the end, and then you can ask whatever questions you want to see how we ended up there. We ended up getting on this show called The Profit on CNBC. With Marcus
Really?
Lemonis.
Oh.
Yep, and that was a very fun experience.
I think I remember that now.
Yep. That was us.
Yeah.
That was me. I was on the show. I was much heavier then. I ate a lot of mac and cheese back in the day. It was unlimited barbecue, which was a good / bad life choice. But yeah, so we were on the show and that was a great experience. I ended up getting a job to go work with Marcus for, 4 or 5 months. And that was awesome. Learned a lot. Came back from that experience and was like, all right, I got to grow. Like, it's like, you gotta remember my headspace at the time. Like we started the business at 24. Like I'm running the thing. I'm really the visionary, like setting the vision for where we're going to go. I'm in a business where literally, just like you just said, Jeff, it's a tough business, and everybody was telling me how tough it was. And so the whole time I'm taking bets with my family, and it just works out. Like we're on this national TV show. We were on this other show. My mom was on a cooking show with oh God, why am I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We were on another night. Like we were just winning all the time in the toughest business in the world. And like, you can't do that and be, at least for me, 24, 25, 26, 27. And I'm just looking around going like, I might be the greatest operator of all time. I might be the next thing. And I'm like, I can't lose. And don't laugh because you know where this is going to go. Like, and that's like,
because we all had that mentality at that age.
I thought it was just me. I thought it was literally just me. And that's how stupid I was at the time. And then life has a way of teaching you stuff. Sure enough, I, instead of doing the smart thing and trying to open another barbecue restaurant and getting some economy of scale and getting some like marketing piggybacking and opening up in a new location because people don't really want to travel more than 3 miles to go to a restaurant, and using all that knowledge, my genius idea was to find a restaurant that had closed. It was already fit out. It was beautiful. All we had to do was change out the logos. And we opened a new concept. It was called Nash's Southern Table and Bar or something like that. And I don't even remember the name. That's how long it lasted. And it took us 30 days to open. I went from having 25 team members to 75 team members in 30 days. We flipped everything in 30 days, hired leadership in 30 days. And the barbecue restaurant was quick service, which means you come up to the counter, you order, you get a number, you go sit down. Nash's was a traditional restaurant. It's kind of like Southern food for Texas Roadhouse. Like that was kind of my angle with it. That was the vision there, but it didn't land. But all of a sudden I had to figure out how to do, well, how do you take reservations? And how do you have a 40-seat bar? Because we've never had one of those. And how do you deal with bartenders? And how do you deal with servers? And how do you have like you have to have appetizers, entrees, and dessert, and it can't just all go out in the same time on the same tray. Like it was like being really good at basketball and then trying to go play baseball. And ask Michael Jordan how that worked out, right? Okay. And the sad thing is like 4 months in, it started to get better because you learn through doing.
Sure.
But we weren't learning fast enough. We weren't changing things fast enough because you just don't know what to change. And essentially, it was a cash flow constraint on the business. And not only that, it was a huge emotional constraint on the whole company, both Nash's and Lyles BBQ. And coming off the back of like the high to start that year with a TV show, to the low at the end of the year to like close Nash's, because it only lasted like 4 months. Because I saw the writing on the wall, and we said, we got to shut this thing down or it's going to kill everything. By the time we shut that business down, this was fall, early winter of 2019. We closed Nash's. We were so burnt out. We were so done. 6 years of trying to grind and build, and just the craziest years of our life. We sold everything off basically and closed the barbecue restaurant officially in January of 2020. And luckily in that time frame, I ended up getting another job. Like I said, I needed a job, and I wanted to go somewhere where I could learn where I had messed up and what I had done wrong. And that's why I got lucky working on the EntreLeadership brand for Ramsey Solutions for 2 years. But we closed 2 months before COVID happened. So I'm very grateful that we weren't still in business when COVID happened, because I don't even know mentally where I was at that point. I don't know what would have happened had I had to deal with a pandemic and closing restaurants and all the things on the back of also having already closed another business. So
Yeah.
Super long-winded story to say.
Did you sell the barbecue place, or did you just close it?
We essentially just sold it off for parts. So we sold some equipment, did some negotiating with landlords to get out of the leases. Because as you guys know, like when you're on leases, you're personally guaranteed. And so we had to find a way out of all that stuff. So 6 years of work, essentially all we had at the end was lessons. And, that was a big eye opener for me, because you realize like, oh, the business you build is only worth, it's not really worth anything until it can run without you in it. And so, going forward, I'm not going to build businesses like that anymore.
What was the main takeaway from working with Marcus Lemonis? Like, what was the most valuable thing he taught?
That's a good question. Selfishly, the thing I took away from all of that was the power of content marketing. And so what I mean by that is, this guy, he has a show on TV. It's an hour long, a ton of people in his ideal customer profile tuned into it, right?
Yeah, I did.
And you'd spend an hour with him. And that's like us hanging out here for an hour, but done at scale. Like hundreds of thousands of people would watch. And so he's building relationships with hundreds of thousands of people without doing any extra work beyond what he did on the original time. And that doesn't count all the times that people bought the show and watched it on their own, or it ran as reruns on CNBC, or YouTube clips of it, like all the different ways that ends up happening. But every single one of those touch points with that show was people building a relationship with him. And so when I got to Ramsey, and Dave does a really good job with content marketing as well. And essentially his daily radio show is content marketing, where people build a relationship with him and his company every single day for 3 hours a day. And they built a huge business doing it. And it's a huge influence thing. And we're in a space now where you guys are doing a show, like, media is going to be the thing, and we're all going to be in media, and we happen to do something else, and that's the ad break. And so that's what we talk about all the time now, is like, you're the original programming, but your product or service is the ad break in between all the original programming.
Sure.
And so if you guys are going to do an ad read, now would be a great time to do it. But that's the biggest lesson I took away from him, because you had people, if you go watch that show, us included, people were willing to give him really favorable terms to be an investor in their business they built from scratch.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
It makes no sense logically, but we're not logical creatures. We're emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge, like, if you want to influence people, like, figure out how to build a brand, a personal brand, that is.
That's a good way to.
No, because I loved that show myself. And then I ended up buying a camper from Camping World, and then I ended up having major issues with it. And he got involved personally several times. And I'm like, how in the world does this man have this bandwidth to get involved in my petty issues? Granted, they were major to me, but for a company his size and his bandwidth, they're minor. And he personally got involved quite a few times. I'm like, I couldn't imagine the bandwidth that he allows himself to have and spread himself thin and still function the way that he does. It's truly impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the back of that too, like, you think about the power of personal brand, right? Like, you now attract not only people to be your customers, but people that want to work for you. Like, I don't remember the
Right.
last time, like Ramsey Solutions gets tens of thousands of applications to work there every year.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now
Yeah.
they only have 1,000 people there, and they probably only hire, I mean, maybe 50 people a year, 100 people a year, depending on the year. And so you're talking about a very low acceptance rate, but like the density of talent in that building, because the personal brand of the founder was so strong. Like, dude, they have 1,000-person team. 300 people on the team, the last time I checked, were either doing marketing specific things or creative specific things, which means that at any time I could just go into the team messenger inside and be like, who's in email marketing? Let me call my friend. Let me text him really quick and ask him a question. And so it's like, imagine having access to some of the smartest people about very specific niche things inside of marketing or creative or whatever, and they can have a very contextualized answer for you automatically. I mean, like that's probably the same thing, for Marcus. Marcus's ability to, have a personal brand, attract really top talent. I mean, Camping World is a huge brand. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
gravitas that comes with working at Camping World. And so people want to be able to put Camping World on their resume because it helps make them look better too. I'm here in Cincinnati. P&G is right down the road.
Oh,
People
yeah.
work at P&G because P&G looks really good on a resume because
Sure.
humans, and I know this with marketing stuff, that's why I'm so obsessed with this stuff now. Humans only have so much bandwidth, right? And so we are looking for every shortcut we can to try to put you in a place without us having to spend a lot of brain calories on it. And so if I can look at you and say, oh, this person worked at P&G, like I can I can I can put them in a slot much quicker than if I have to like get to know you and your whole life story. And so yeah, I think Marcus has a lot of bandwidth. Dave has a lot of bandwidth because they've
Crazy,
surrounded
man.
themselves with really smart, really talented people, and they've built a team where they want to stay.
So you obviously, since being in the Air Force, I'm not imagining that there's much marketing jobs in the Air Force that you took classes on and whatnot. So you came out and you just learned really on the fly marketing.
Yep.
What was the number one like aha moment that was like, okay, that is what I now understand marketing about?
Mm. What do you mean? Like how to
Like,
make a
was there
marketing?
like just a concept that like when you read it and it like clicked that you're like, okay, now I kind of get
Mm.
exactly what marketing is?
Yeah, I've got a great story for this. So my dad was my business partner. My mom and my dad were my business partners. My dad's an old school guy. Like he was a recruiter in the Air Force the last half of his career. And so recruiters, especially back then, pre-internet, were like very old school, like get in the schools, talk to people, knock down doors, email or cold call, like write letters, like very old school tactical stuff. When we started the restaurant, my dad wanted to go door to door and just tell people about what we were doing and to like honestly try to sell catering door to door, which by the way, I'm pretty sure he did to just prove a point. Like, and I think he sold like a pound or two of pulled pork to somebody. And I was like, man, that's amazing, but we're not going to build a business on the back of like, I love that story for you. And like forever, you can hold it over my head that it worked. But we're not going to build a business selling $30 worth of pulled pork door to door. And anybody that buys pulled pork door to door, like, question your life choices because I don't
Right.
think I would buy food from a
I
door to door
wouldn't.
pulled pork seller. And you guys are from Texas, which is like a barbecue mecca, so that should tell
Right.
you something right there. But it's family, so you're having dumb arguments all
Oh,
the
of
time
course.
because you got to love the family just one step more than you love the business, and that's essentially why we were able to make it as long as we did. It wasn't the family; the family dynamics were not the reason that business closed. Let me be very clear with that. But my dad was very old school in that way. And at the time, I was like going all in on like, we got to have a website, and we can't have an at Gmail email address. I just sort of intuitively knew like that just seems poor. Like that just seems terrible. And if we want to build a brand, like whatever that means to me now, 6 months into learning about this, like it has to be at lylesbarbecuecompany.com. That just feels more official to me. So I followed a lot of intuition early on and, again, reading a lot of books and all the things. And so I went all in on like digital marketing first. So we built the website, we put the menu up there, we had Google My Business up, we had Yelp, we had all that kind of stuff. And it was a ton of time with not a lot of income coming in doing all that. And then I got really into social media marketing. And back then, 2014, 2015, organic on Facebook and Instagram were still really, really high. And so you could post one simple picture of a sandwich and people would see it and then they would come to wherever you were going. And the unlock for us though was we built all those sort of layers. And we had branded ourselves well. We had a good logo. We had a good tagline. We did all that kind of accidentally, like a lot of like real luck for us to end up where we were, because it was really just an outward reflection of our family. That was kind of the brand. And so it was natural and it was easy to come up with. But we had built all those different bases. And then all of a sudden, we started running Facebook ads. And when I was able to run a $5 Facebook ad and 10,000 people in Lexington would see it, that was a huge unlock for us, because I worked the register at the tent every single day. And like I had this weird paranoia where if I let any of my family talk to any customers, like they would do something dumb and then, we would not get that customer back and we get a 1-star review. Like I was paranoid of the 1-star review online because we hadn't had any yet. We had a 5-star, reputation at the time. And so I worked the register every single day, which is a whole other conversation about delegation and building systems and trusting teams that I learned later. But originally I was like, I got to talk to everybody. And so nobody come over here. Y'all just stay back there and slice meat and just be the show ponies. But what I would ask everybody, and I don't remember why I did this. It was, I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but essentially I'd say, hey, is this your first time eating with us? And if they said yes, well, first off, if they said no, I'd always say, thank you so much for coming back. I'd make it a big deal, like a really big, like, thanks for being in the tribe. Thanks for being a part of us. Like, we're connected. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If it was their first time, my second question was always, how did you hear about us? And so many business owners don't do that. I can go on so many people's websites right now, look at your contact forms. And if you don't have a simple button that says, or a little, what are those, the little things where you type the words in, like whatever free range words you want. If you don't have that in there where you go, how did you hear about us? And let them just make something up, because usually they'll tell you the truth. Like even if it's 85% accurate, that's better than what you got now, which is back of the napkin, finger in the air math. But I'd ask everybody, how'd you hear about us? Number one, across the board, word of mouth. So-and-so told me about it, told me I had to try it, come in. That's great. That's what you want as a business. By the way, that's going to always be your number one driver. It shouldn't be marketing. It should be word of mouth. And if word of mouth is your number one traffic source, what that tells me is that you have product market fit. You have product market fit so well that people are willing to risk their personal reputations, the thing they care about the most, to tell other people about what you do, because you make them look better. People are inherently selfish, for better or worse. Sure. I mean, it's okay. It's how we survive. It's all the things. But I'm not going to recommend a place to you in Texas for barbecue unless I've eaten there before and I know it's good, and because I'm gonna give my own reputation to it, right? Like, here's something we might fight about. I will never recommend Rudy's to you. I don't think Rudy's is great, and people in San Antonio freaking love that place. But I'm not going to tell you to go there. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. I got a whole 30-minute soapbox I could go on with places people love that I don't understand. But so like that's number one. And if you're not getting people coming in saying so-and-so told me about this place, don't start marketing yet, because you don't have product market fit. Like you don't solve the need of the customer in the right way to where they're willing to go talk to you about it or talk to their friends about it for free. Because once you do that, then marketing comes in behind that and basically amplifies it. It gets new people to come in, the early innovators, the early adopters, the people that want to try the new thing so that they can go tell everybody else. They'll come in, you get more of them in, and then they go share it. But the second leading indicator of or way people found us was, I saw it on Facebook, saw it on Instagram, saw it on Facebook, saw it on Instagram, saw it on Facebook. Now, there was no way for me to track it to know if it was ads or if it was organic. But I could see real numbers because I wasn't very good at tracking stuff back then. I didn't have a MarTech guy. I didn't know how to make pixels talk, and that, like, I was good at barbecue. I just dropped a pin, ran the ads. Like, that was how we did it back then. And we don't do it that way now. Like, don't hear me say Hy-Vee marketing just free ranges. Like, we track it. Ben Tonek, my business partner, would yell at me if I tried to come off that we didn't do that.
You've grown since then.
I've gotten smarter. I hire or work with or partner with people that know what the hell they're doing, and I don't. And I just say, you want to talk about that? Ask Ben. If you guys want to talk about pixels, I'll call Ben right now. We can have him on the show. He'll tell you all the things. But yeah, everybody would come in and say, I saw it on Facebook. I saw it on Instagram. And you got to understand, at the time, we didn't know that was the answer. So we were trying a bunch of different stuff. Like, I had run radio ads, but I didn't just run radio ads because I didn't think people listened to them. And so I partnered with the local DJ and had live ad read spots during his sessions. Like, I would have him talk about it while it was like incorporated very organically, much like organic social media was, like during his content blocks. And that didn't really work. And then we bought a billboard that was a digital billboard. Supposedly it was like a mile down the road. It got like 100,000 or something impressions a day. That didn't work. I bought TV ads. Those didn't work. From a direct response marketing piece, none of those things brought business in the door. But what I didn't realize at the time, and I really was an immature marketer at the time, and I didn't understand the power of brand awareness as a marketing tactic and marketing mix. And so now, knowing what I know now, it just depends on what size your business is, what I would recommend you do. But like early on, like sub $5 million a year in revenue, like as a broad, depending on industry, things change, yada, yada. Like you should be
Right.
very focused on performance marketing. Once you get definitely past 1 million, like once you approach 5 million, you need to have a very clear plan for like, okay, how do we build our brand awareness? Because you have to load up the top of the funnel if you want to extract value out of the bottom of it. And essentially what paid ads are doing is they're taking all the value you've already created for people and extracting it. So yeah, that's a super long-winded answer to say, I found out that if people knew about us and they liked us and they trusted us, they'd come in. And the best way to do that was to do social media marketing.
Is that kind of like, it feels like, because marketing companies are, like you kind of said earlier on, like a dime a dozen anymore these days. And all of it obviously is all geared towards social media. Does that mean like TV and radio are just kind of obsolete, or is that more, what do I want to say, like towards certain categories of companies that work for TV and radio, but certain ones should stick to social media?
Yeah. We can speak in broad generalities here because that's essentially what we're going to do without talking
Right.
to a specific like business. Like
Correct.
if you're Bucky's, Bucky's buying billboards 200 miles out is a really good idea. But that's brand
Literally
awareness
like
marketing.
200 miles out.
I know, but it's like they're not getting a customer from that. It's just a brand awareness play. And so, but they're doing it on billboards. And so essentially what works is like brand awareness marketing and then call to action marketing. And like, that's kind of the two, like there's more technical terms for it, but essentially that's what that is. And like when they're saying a mile away from the place, hey, next exit, get your brisket or whatever, like that's how you know, like that's a call to action marketing technique, right? So I wouldn't say digital is the only way. I'm just saying, like, for the majority of business out there, with like a few exceptions, like it is the way to do it because marketers go where the attention is. I don't
Sure.
care that it's on the phones or on social media or whatever. I just have to be there. Like, if it wasn't for me owning a marketing agency or like needing to do it, like I would get rid of all that stuff. I don't need it. Like, I have to be on it,
Right.
because that's where, bro, do you realize like people spend 2 hours a day on TikTok? People spend 2 hours a day on YouTube. And then I meet people that are like, I don't have an advertising plan for either of those things. And I'm like, 2 hours a day of free time. Because what people don't understand, and I don't know if this is answering your question, it might just me being on a soapbox because I've been on a lot of calls this week arguing with customers and I don't get to do that. So I just sort of have to like be politically correct in those conversations. But like you guys, it's just my soapbox time. You have a platform where somebody's spending 2 hours a day and you're not wanting to show up there. Like it just blows my mind. I don't really understand it. So what we teach people as a rule of thumb, like a general marketing strategy that'll get you 80% of the way there. Here's what you got to do. You start with branding, and branding means you understand who your ideal customer is, what problem they have, what specific product or service you have to solve their problem. And then additionally, what your brand archetype is. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with brand archetypes, but essentially it's like Harley Davidson is a great example, like as a outlaw brand. Like it's a very clear picture that comes in your mind when I say the words Harley Davidson. Or back in the day when Steve Jobs was there, Apple had a very clear like creator type brand, right?
No, he did.
Not so much anymore. That's a whole other soapbox thing for me.
So is Harley.
Yeah, Harley, same thing, right? Nike's a hero brand. Like they're very still much focused on like the hero athlete, Gatorade. Yeah. And so like you got to combine all four of those elements first. And a lot of people, they just they open up a business and they don't really do that pre-work. And when I ask them like, who's your ideal customer? And they say, well, we really kind of serve everybody. And it's like, well, that's not specific enough, especially for most people with their limited budgets. Like the broader you get, the less, like the more resources you need to be able to hit all of those people, right? Coca-Cola spends what, 9% of their $45 billion every single year on marketing. So it's like $8 billion a year on marketing. They can be broad. You cannot. Like you're spending, that's another thing. Spend 10% of your revenue on marketing. Otherwise, like you're not going to grow as fast as you want to grow. So you start there, you get your brand together, follow those 4 things. I've got a blog that I just wrote on Hy-Vee marketing to like walk you through that step by step. The next thing is you go get, and that also includes like getting your logo done and your colors and your fonts, like make all that stuff look and feel nice because it's a first impression. Like you don't want a janky logo, like spend a little bit of money, couple $1,000s, have a branding expert fix your stuff because it matters. Next thing, get your website in order. The number of websites I've gone to where I walk into the website, I treat it like a brick and mortar business. I walk into the store, your website, and I don't know where to go. And I'm like, I've got 50,000 options. And I'm like, what do you want me to do here? Because I'm here for 5 seconds. And if it's not a clear path where I'm guiding along and I'm interested in it all the way, like I'm leaving very quickly. And so at the restaurant back in the day, you'd come in the front door, there'd be a cattle call, you'd kick around to the left, go to the register, order, go sit down. Like it was a very clear process. And so if you go to hybeemarketing.com, it's very clear. You come in, you see what we do, you see that I want you to book a discovery call. Like that is like everything is pointing to you booking a discovery call. If you refuse to do that, there are a few other auxiliary options that are buried down. Like you can read some of the articles, or you can watch some of the videos, or some other like things, join our email list, that kind of thing. But mostly I'm trying to get you to do one specific thing. So once you have all that set up from your website standpoint and your basic SEO stuff, like don't let anybody sell you some crazy SEO package. Like it's like set it up one time, pay somebody one time, and like you're probably good for a year.
Right.
The next thing you want to do is install some sort of like email trigger. So even if it's like a basic pop-up that comes up or a lead magnet, when I had the barbecue restaurant, I used to give away free pulled pork sandwiches if you gave me your email address. And I didn't care if you gave me 20 different email addresses. I didn't care. I wasn't tracking it that much because like 1% of people do shady shit. The majority of people are good people. And so if you act like that, like things work out for you.
Sure.
So get some sort of email trigger out there so that you can start to build your own list. And then email those people once a week. Anything you want. I don't care what you email them. We have an email on Hy-Vee Marketing. I would love for everybody listening to go join that email list. And I run it. And I just give you like one marketing thought of the week. Usually it's my favorite post from social media that I did that week. Like hint, hint. I don't really put a lot of thought into it. It's just repurposed from my best performing stuff on social where I do a lot of random things. And so it's like highly curated type content. But it's just meant to keep us top of mind, like just top of mind. Because I learned this in the barbecue business. Everybody has their top 5. So what happens is, are you guys married or? You know,
Yes, both of us.
Like you and your wife, you sit down and you go, what do you want to get for dinner tonight? At least me and my wife do this. And we go, okay, here's the options.
Wait,
Boom,
your
boom,
wife
boom, boom,
answers that question?
Yeah, no. What is
Because
that?
mine is usually, I don't care, whatever you want. And then I list
Yeah.
something off. Nah, anything but that. And then it becomes this.
You list the 5. You list the top 5. So like some version of that conversation happens, right? Where you go like, you want Chipotle, you want Chick-fil-A.
Like,
My wife's never
unicorn,
Chipotle, by the way. I just always say it because I love it and I want it every once in a while, but like she never says yes. But like you go like Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, like salad, wherever you want to go. Eventually, you want to be the top 5 option for that problem. I'm hungry. What are the top 5 options for that? You know, you guys do funding. It's like, I need business funding. What are the top 5 options for that? Credit union, Bank of America, you guys, like Lone Star Valor, right? So it's like, how do you position yourself in the top 5? Weekly emails going out reminds people in your list, like, hey, we know you might not need funding this week, but you may need it next week, or more likely 6 months from now. And so we need to be top of mind, because Chase and all of their what's in your wallet commercials that they put out, all they're doing is trying to be top of mind for when you think I have this problem, I'm going to go call Samuel L. Jackson. And then I'm mad that Samuel L. Jackson's not on the phone when I call, and it's a whole thing. But that's what really email marketing is. And then, you know, we always include some sort of CTA at the bottom of the email to work with us if you're actually interested. But like 90% of the email is just value-driven, top of mind content. So that's the next thing. So we've got your brand is set up well. You've got a clean website that's a clear purpose, and we've got an email list that we're building, owning our own tribe of people, essentially. The next thing you want to figure out how to do is organic social media. Now, organic social media back in the day only got showed to your followers. Today, that doesn't really happen. Right. It's an interest-based graph now. It's not a follower-based graph, which means if you like puppies, you're going to see a shit ton of puppies. If you like barbecue, like me, you're going to see a ton of barbecue. And so if you
And for the smaller people out there, like on social media, the smaller companies, the following count doesn't matter anymore for any algorithm.
No,
So
pretty
don't get
much. No.
discouraged just by the following count, because I think that discourages a lot of people, because it used to be a big thing, but
Yeah.
it's not anymore.
If I know this for a fact, if YouTube could get rid of the subscriber count, they would. But it's such a big part of the creator culture on that platform with getting like silver play buttons and gold and diamond that they can't. But like I think I just did a post on LinkedIn about this today. 28 days ago, I had 250 subscribers on YouTube on my personal channel. 28 days later, I have 315. That's great. But I got 58,000 views between my shorts videos and my long form videos in the last month. Like 300 subscribers, 58,000 views. Like it's not even, it doesn't matter. You know, it's a vanity metric. It's great. It's a great tracker for like seeing yourself make progress. It makes me feel good when I cross 300. I'm not going to lie
it's
to
a
you.
flex.
Like,
it
I
can
love
be a
it. Yeah,
flex.
no doubt. But like it doesn't, it like we're you know, flexes don't buy groceries, right? Which is the big thing for us here.
Exactly.
So organic social media today, it doesn't get shown locally, but what it can do is teach you how to make better ads. And so what I mean by that is you should learn how to make a lot of photo, graphics, and video content for social media. See what the algorithm pushes for free. And so if you make a post that gets 10,000 views for free and you've got like 500 followers on Instagram, for instance, all of a sudden they're telling you, hey, we'll show this to people for free. Imagine what happens then if you reskin the outside of that ad or that piece of content and make it an ad and then run money behind it. Facebook will love you. They'll say, hey, thank you so much for making a high engagement ad and not killing our platform. Like, let's make your CPM significantly cheaper. And so that's the way I look at organic social media today. It's like a good way to like build your own internal storytelling muscle, and like really diehard fans of your brand will follow you and will see it. And it's a great way to stay again in the top 5 for those people. But organic social media as a way to drive revenue is a bad idea. Like it's just not going to happen. For instance, at the Ramsey Solutions brand, when I was there, Dave's channel got like 4 billion impressions a year. 4 billion impressions. That's amazing. Directly attributed revenue was like 3-4 million, which is great, but that's 4 billion impressions for $4 million. Like that is not a good trade-off on time. And we see this time and time again when we see surveys from marketing leaders all around the country. Like paid ads are still the number one way to drive revenue. And so, but the problem with paid ads is people don't know how to make really good ads. And so organic social is a perfect, inexpensive testing ground to make better content, see what the algorithm promotes, and then you should go run paid ads. And we recommend everybody at least 10% of your budget, cut expenses, do whatever you can. 10% of your budget needs to go towards marketing. That includes like salaries and paid and content production. Like everything marketing has to be 10%. And so, and as much of that 10% as possible needs to be on promoting your brand and getting them in front of more eyeballs and more of the right eyeballs. And so like if you're a smaller company, I'm sorry, you're going to have to watch the YouTube stuff, subscribe to our email, go to our YouTube channel. Like we'll teach you how to do it kind of for free on your own, but like you're busy running all the things, you can't really optimize it like we can. Like our job is to come in and take you from where you're at and like amplify you up. So Highbeam doesn't sell anything until you get to the very end. Like we only do paid ads, and we dabble in helping you with creative, but like we're just good at helping your paid ads make more money. So that's really the only place we come in. But you as a company, you as a business owner, and I'm very aware of the fact that like, did you guys know like 82% of small businesses, like 35 million in the country, are sole proprietors? Like they don't have employees. They're solo. So you got to be the one doing it. And so like once you learn it all, and I did it. I was a barbecue guy. I taught myself how to do all this stuff and then found smart people to help me do the things that return the most money possible.
Well, so speaking of sole proprietors though, and just we'll probably have to keep this one a little short, but what's the number one mistake that in marketing that sole proprietors do tend to make that you're seeing in a trend wise?
Yeah, well, I have a word for this. It's called random acts of marketing. I had a radio guy come in and sell me a radio ad, so I tried it. I had a guy come in and sell me a newspaper ad, so I bought it. I had a guy that has a Kroger. He sells the little basket ads, you know, that when you flip open the little child basket and they got the little picture there, it's like I put my ad in there. I saw ads on the back of receipts. Like salesmen sell advertising, which feels weird to me. And what that means is that they're selling different pieces of a marketing mix or a marketing plan. You don't have a plan. And so you're just sort of freely, willy-nilly doing a bunch of stuff. And then you come to me and say, Chandler, marketing doesn't work. I don't need it. I'll just rely on word of mouth. And that's the biggest problem is most people don't have a plan. They don't have a reason for buying billboards, and they don't have a reason for hitting the blue boost button on Facebook. And they wonder why marketing doesn't work. So that's the biggest problem is get a plan. And if you want a plan, rewind this episode 10 minutes and hear that whole spiel I just did from branding to paid ads. Like that's it. That's
Right.
80% of it. If you just do that, your business will grow in the next 12 months. I promise you. And I don't make a dime from that. Like just do that. Like please try it and call me if it doesn't work because I need to change what I tell people to do.
Awesome. So is highbeammarketing.com, is that the best place to contact you?
Yeah, you can either go to highbeammarketing.com, Instagram at Chandler Lyles. YouTube channel is really big for me right now at Chandler Lyles. Any of those things are great places to connect with me. And then I do have the YouTube channel is great because you can ask me specific questions in the comments, and I will make a whole YouTube video answering that specific question.
On YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
And that's Chandler Lyles?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. You still do barbecue?
I have a green egg, I have a Blackstone, and I still do it. We just did a big barbecue here at the block for a block party, and it was awesome. I forget. It's funny though. I still have a YouTube channel. So if you search my name on YouTube, you might find my barbecue channel more likely because it's larger because that's been around longer. But yeah, I still have the YouTube channel for barbecue because I just can't let it go.
Yeah.
I feel like that L on my resume is not going to be there forever. I'm going to have a real hero's journey, full circle moment, and come back to it at some point and get back into the barbecue restaurant business.
Block parties is what took my elevation of my barbecue skills. We went
It's a lot of pressure.
30 people to 250 by the time we were done on a weekend.
Dang.
Yeah, it was
Let's
fun.
go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's no better high than somebody coming up to you being like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my life.
Yeah.
This is not.
And it'd be your neighbors too at that. So
Yep. Oh, I know that world.
Well, Chandler, if there's anything that we can do for you here and now in the future, let us know. And everybody else, go visit him at highbeammarketing.com and go to his YouTube channel, Chandler Lyles. And did you want to leave us with anything else?
Man, I just really appreciate what you guys are doing. The world is filled with me and Jared were talking about this earlier. The world's filled with internet gurus, and there's not enough people that are like, this was a big problem I had when I first started the business. You just don't know what you don't know. And so anybody with a YouTube channel or a blog or a podcast, you think they have your best interest at heart, and you find out that they're just trying to sell you something down the road. And it's not necessarily that selling something is bad. It's that they have the wrong intentions for selling you something. And so I just really appreciate you guys. I know how much work it is to do this sort of thing. And so I appreciate you guys doing this and helping other entrepreneurs out there. It's needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jared, you got anything you want to add?
No, it was great having you on, Chandler. Thank you again for being a guest. And hopefully we can get you back on here again in the future.
Anytime.
Absolutely. All right. With that said, y'all have a great weekend.
All right.
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.